Grey's Anatomy Season 18, everything you need to know. Grey's Anatomy delivered a packed Season 18 finale that saw multiple relationship status changes, the return of Jackson Avery and April Kepner, Owen's decisions coming back to hunt him, and does anyone still work at Grey Sloan? Some questions were answered, such as what will happen to the residency program, but many more were raised, setting the stage for a really interesting Season 19 when the medical drama returns to ABC this fall. Let's unpack the season finale's makeup, breakups, and why the hospital lost so many doctors. Owen and Teddy are forced to flee after the death with dignity scandal was revealed. Owen and Teddy's worst fears were realized in the Grey's Anatomy season finale when the husband of a veteran appeared and asked Owen to assist his wife in dying with dignity. Teddy put her foot down and stated that they would not break any more laws, prompting the husband to inform Bailey that Owen had stolen drugs from the hospital in order to help other terminally ill veterans end their lives. While Owen stood by his decision, the chief told Bailey she had to report them to the police because it was a legal issue, not a moral one. She accepted their resignations, however, and said she'd give them a few hours before contacting the authorities. The couple picked up their children from a worried Amelia and boarded a plane bound for an unknown destination. Is that the end of Kevin McKidd and Kim Raver? It's unlikely, as the actors, along with Camilla Luddington, reportedly signed 3-year contracts ahead of Season 17, which should keep them on the show until Season 19, but we'll have to wait and see. Catherine's cancer treatment was successful, so she and Richard went on sabbatical. Catherine Fox had reason to rejoice, and it wasn't just because she was able to see her granddaughter Harriet. Amelia delivered the good news that the treatment was working and she was no longer dying from cancer, but simply living with it. She and Richard decided to celebrate the good news by taking a sabbatical to see the Great Pyramids, an interesting choice given that the hospital was facing its most difficult challenge yet, the closure of its residency program. Bailey quit with no notice after the residency program was shut down. Jamara Blake informed Bailey that the working relationship between her, Richard, and Meredith had become dysfunctional after Meredith disobeyed Richard's orders to refrain from performing a risky operation, and Richard, in turn, refused to respect Bailey's authority as chief. Blake assigned the chief the task of rebuilding the residency program from the ground up, while simultaneously revoking the hospital's accreditation. Yes, Levi Schmidt, Taryn Helm, Mabel Zhang, Xander Perez, and the other residents are no longer employed at Grey Sloan. Bailey, who nearly had another heart attack as a result of this season's events, and whose priorities shifted with her and Ben's adoption of Prue Miller, decided enough was enough, and decided to prioritize her own well-being. She quit the hospital with no notice, handing Meredith the keys to her office on the way out and telling her, "You broke it, you bought it." But wait, wasn't Meredith supposed to be moving to Minnesota? Meredith ascends to Chief of Surgery, her birthright, or is she stuck in Seattle? Meredith was left as Chief of Surgery after Richard and Bailey left, as well as pressure from Jackson not to go to Minnesota. With her family's history there, it almost seems like her birthright, but she really wanted to leave. Her visions of her mother's abusive words and trying to save Derek the day he was shot indicated that her trauma would keep her bound to Grey Sloan Memorial for the rest of her life. Meredith seemed to succumb to the futility of it all as she sat in Bailey's office, correct, her office, telling Nick to leave because his life was in Minnesota and hers was in Seattle. But in the final moments of the episode, she may have changed her mind, yelling for Nick to return. Did the threat of losing him push her to overcome her demons? Grey's Anatomy all but confirmed Season 19 to be the end. Grey's Anatomy Season 18 ended with the hospital in a bind without a residency program, a chief of trauma, or a co-chief of cardio, implying that Grey's Anatomy Season 19 would be its final. The hospital's challenges will be even greater next season than they were this season, when the residency program was only threatened. Its closure will harm Grey Sloan Memorial's reputation. Meredith will have to guide the hospital through its most difficult test yet. Furthermore, Grey's Anatomy emphasized throughout the second half of Season 18 how Meredith felt she was finished with Grey Sloan, but was having difficulty letting go. Her difficulties in leaving her colleagues and family behind stemmed not only from her hasty decision to resign, but also her attachment to the place where she spent her entire life. The Season 18 finale of Grey's Anatomy left the story open to the possibility that, while the show could end with Meredith leaving Seattle, it could also end with Meredith accepting her complicated history with Grey Sloan Memorial and becoming its permanent Chief of Surgery. The setup makes Grey's Anatomy Season 19 ideal for seeing former characters return to save the hospital and the best way to end the storied series. We don't know how many more seasons of Grey's Anatomy we'll get, or if the show will ever continue without Meredith, but we do know that the drama is continuing for season 19 on ABC. Similarly, Hulu streams the latest episodes of Grey's Anatomy next day, in addition to having previous season episodes available to watch.